Okay, so in this video we're going to teach you about another type of 10-point question that you might see in junior Bible quizzing. So the first one we're going to go over is the quotation question, and we're going to give you a couple of examples of how it works here. So question number 6 is a quotation question worth 10 points question. Quote James chapter 1 verse 3. Read 1.
Knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience.
That is correct. Now, I've instructed my helper here not to interrupt any of these questions, even though he could. So we're trying to make them as simple as possible in this video. So there's a couple of different ways that you may hear this question worded. They may say question 6 is a quotation question worth 10 points, or they may say question 6 is worth 10 points. It is a quotation question. However they say it, you really don't have to start paying, you want to pay attention to it, but you don't have to pay too much attention until you heard the word question, whereas some quiz masters will say ready question. So question 6, like we did, question 6 is a quotation question worth 10 points, question. And then this is where they're actually going to say, quote James chapter 1 verse 3. Or in some cases they may say, quote verse 3 of James chapter 1. So they may put it backwards. And so you have to, it means the same thing, it's just one way is backwards, the other way is said regularly. Okay, so let's do another practice one here. Quotation question. So we're going to do this one backwards. Question 6 is a quotation question worth 10 points question. Quote verse 3 of James chapter 1. Read 1.
Knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience.
That is correct. So you can see it's the same way, either way. One way is just said James chapter 1 verse 3, the other way is quote verse 3 of James chapter 1. Alright, so that's a basic quotation question. And always remember, in the 10-pointers, they're always going to be pretty much all short verses. You're hardly ever going to see a long verse, if ever, in a 10-point question. The next one we're going to go over is called a quotation completion question. And in this question, they basically are going to start part of the verse for you, and then what you have to do is you can actually finish the verse for them. Or what I usually recommend doing is starting at the beginning of the verse and quoting it all the way through, because you never know what if you don't start exactly where he stopped, and you may miss the question because of that. So let's do a couple of practice quotation completion questions. All right, so question 6 is a quotation completion question worth 10 points question. Knowing this, that the, read 1.
Knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience.
That is correct. So as you can see, he started at the beginning of the verse and quoted it all the way through instead of starting where I stopped, because sometimes you may think you started where the quizmaster stopped at the right place, but maybe you didn't quite start there. So it's a good thing to do, to actually just start at the beginning of the verse and just quote it all the way through. All right. So that's basically how a quotation completion question works. They're pretty simple. Let's do one more quotation completion. So question 6 is a quotation completion question worth 10 points question. For the wrath of man, read 1.
For the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God.
That is correct. All right, so hopefully you get a good feel for how the quotation and quotation completion questions work. There's another verse, or another type of question that we also use called a locate this verse question. And it's also very important to know how to use it. Now, usually what you would do is you would interrupt the question, and you would, because basically what will happen is the quizmaster will start off they'll actually read the entire verse, and then you have to locate it. And so most quizzers will interrupt it and then finish the verse and locate it. But in this example, I've instructed my helper not to interrupt the question, just for example purposes. So let's do a practice one here. Question number 4 is worth 10 points. Question. Locate this verse. Do not err, my beloved brethren. Read 1.
James chapter 1 verse 16.
That is correct. And let's do another locate this first one. Okay. Question number 5 is worth 10 points question. Locate this verse. For the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God. Read 1.
James chapter 1 verse 20.
That is correct. All right, so that's basically the 3 different types of questions where you'll have to actually quote a verse. So you have the quotation, where they give you the reference and you quote it. You have the quotation completion where they'll start the verse for you, and then you want to quote the actual entire verse. And then you have a locate this verse where they give you the entire verse and you have to tell what reference it is. A couple of really important things to note on a quotation question. When they say quote James chapter 1 verse 20, do not say the reference before you quote it, because that'll make it incorrect. So they say quote James 1 verse 20, and you hit the buzzer, red one, and you say James 1:20, for the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God. You're going to count that incorrect because you said the reference in front of the verse. It's a quotation question. You don't ever want to say the reference before you quote it in a quotation question. And same way in a quotation completion question. So if they say for the wrath of man, and you hit the buzzer and you say James 1:20, for the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God, even though you said the verse right, they're going to count you incorrect because you said the reference. And so that's a couple of things you want to remember on the quotation and quotation completion questions. And the reason for it is it's because you're only supposed to quote the verse. It's not asking you to give the reference. So it's like you're saying that's part of the verse, and the reference is not really part of the verse. But just an easy way to remember it, just on any type of quotation or quotation completion, when you hit the buzzer, do not say what the reference is before you quote it. Just go ahead and quote the verse. All right, and that's it for this short video.